Welcome to Chanakya, where you get the right guidance at the right time. Today I have with me expert coaches Ananth and Vishu. Welcome to Chanakya, Ananth and Vishu. We have a situation with George, one which has often been encountered by managers. George is an engineering manager in a high growth e-commerce company. The online website had crashed the previous night after a new production release. As soon as George reached office, his manager summoned him to his cabin and took him to task on the poor release. George came out of the meeting fuming. And who did he see first? It was the test lead Sashi. Okay. And he shouted at her, asking how the test team can allow such a bad quality release to make it to production. Sashi tried to explain that they had completed all the tests and the bug fixes were also done by the dev team, burning the midnight oil. George was not in any listening mode. So Sashi was demotivated but was determined to get the site back up as soon as possible. So she got along with the team and then got the site up in the next hour or so. And it turned out that the crash was not due to any fault in the application, but because of the cloud infrastructure. When George knew about this, he felt very bad, that he had to shout at Sashi and also vent his anger in an impulsive manner. So what is your view on George's behavior, Ananth?
I can relate to George because I've been in situations like that where, in fact, my team, my reportees used to say, Ananth, you're acting like a postman, right? Where you're just passing down messages either from management or customer, not just the content, with emotions.
Maybe even amplifying sometimes.
Yeah, amplifying, right. And that sort of feedback was hard to swallow actually, right? It was not easy. But blissfully, I was self-aware, I guess, to know that, there is something that I need to manage, right? But it's one thing knowing, but another thing managing and controlling your emotions. So I have found, if that sort of self-awareness or self-regulation is not there, anger is going to rule situations like this, for people like George. Yeah.
Interesting. But whether you were aware or not, I think your team was aware of your emotional state. Yeah. Okay. Vishu, I have one basic question. Now, why does anger happen?
Okay. So you want to do an RCA?
Yeah.
Root cause analysis. In my experience, I think when something or somebody is not acceptable to me, anger comes as a reaction. If I accept people and situations as they are, I see my impulsive nature reduces and I become more receptive. Okay. And I don't jump into or don't get hijacked. So I think awareness and acceptance are the two important things, without which I think anger comes as a compulsion.
Interesting issue. So awareness and acceptance are the keys. Yeah, I think that's easy to remember. But Ananth, what has been your experience
in dealing with anger situations? I guess.
Anger situations.
So when I introspected on my anger situations, there was something I found that I was in what I call a blaming mode, right? I was trying to find out who did it, right? And I realized that when I shifted my mental model to instead of blaming mindset to what I call solution mindset, right? Where the questions I'm asking are not about who's at fault and who are to blame. I start asking questions like, okay, what is the problem here? What is the solution? And who needs to be involved in implementing the solution or figuring out the problem, figuring out the solution, right? So I found that helped me immensely in actually preventing anger, right? Yeah, that was my experience. Yeah.
So it's about moving from a blaming mindset to a solution mindset, right? Yeah, it seems simple, but first of all, why do we get angry? Is getting angry a bad thing? Because today, when you see so many things around you that you can't accept it, like you said. Yeah. So you're aware, but you can't accept it.
Yeah. I think if we understand the nature of anger, we will get an answer to say whether anger is bad or or it's okay. Essentially, at a physiological level, anger is chemistry. It basically produces a lot of different kinds of toxins in the body and neurological impacts. And if I look at when I become angry, the person who is going to be impacted most is myself, not somebody else. Also, if I shout at somebody with anger, I am going to impact them negatively. They are going to get into negative emotion, situation is going to be more negative. So, both ways anger is counterproductive for myself as well as for somebody else and even for this situation. Essentially, what we are trying to achieve through anger is we want people to act on something which we feel as important. But I think that's better done by more assertive and positive messages or communications than, you know, impulsively or compulsively shouting with anger or expressing anger like that.
Yeah, I never looked at the effect of anger on myself. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. But if it's directly affecting an individual, why do people shout at each other in anger? Is it not easy to understand what Vishu is saying?
Like they say, knowing what to do is easy, but doing what you know is harder. So, but interesting, I think in my view, there is a little bit of psychology here, in the sense people feel that getting angry is part of their nature. Their temperament is like that, right? And they kind of accept that. They're fine, in a sense they're fine with it, right? And many of them often tell, if you do this, I'll get angry. You know that, right? So don't do those things, right? And so they kind of, justify their anger, and they're fine with it. But even if you take this situation that we're talking about, where George is sort of shouting at Shashi, and then Shashi goes and finds out, nothing wrong with what she did, and then George is feeling bad. She shouted at someone who was not at fault, right? But think about if that was not the case, and actually Sashi's team was at fault, right? In all probability, George might have felt justified in his anger, right? So that he might have felt, so they will not repeat this. So I think, it's I think that's probably one of the reasons why people continue shouting. And
See, I've seen you always very smiling and happy and peaceful and all that.
Thank you.
Do you ever get angry, or have you got angry? And based on that, how you handled it, are there any tips for George?
One thing I mentioned is not having that mindset, blaming to moving from blaming mindset to solution mindset. I found. See, the thing to remember there is, most people will do blaming mindset and then move to solution mindset. But the point is to moving to solution mindset straight away, right? So that's something that prevents anger. So that's something I think learned, and it's helped me. There are a few other techniques which are simple techniques, like taking a few deep breaths, or I've seen this now. I'll type out a mail, really, I really want to send a message to them, kind of mail, right? But not all caps. But don't send it, right? I'll come back next day, look at the message. I'm horrified at what I've written myself, right? And then rewriting it and sending it. But that's sort of would have been much softer mail, right? Much softer approach. And the other thing is, sometimes just go for a walk, get away from the scene of anger, if you like, right? And that helps. And often, I think I'm going to get angry, I just go say, can I get a glass of water, go get it, and then sip it slowly, slowly. Yeah.
So literally putting water on fire.
Yeah, putting out the fire inside, right? And then it sort of calms me down. But if you look at, if you ask me a question about how can we coach George in this case, what I would recommend or I would do is help George realize that about his thoughts and behaviors, right? For example, his thoughts about who is at fault, or tending to blame someone. Help him realize that that's what caused him to get angry, right? In place of that, if he had told Shashi, let's work this out together, and let's focus on investigating and solving the problem, I think he would not have gotten angry. Yeah. Those are a few tips I can think of.
Yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, I'll tell George when I meet him next. So, Vishu, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think what Ananth mentioned about taking deep breath, etc., I have found them very useful. But the challenge is at that moment being aware.
Yeah.
Even at that moment, I should take a deep breath. Lot of times it's after the fact. So it happens, then I realize, oh my God.
Yeah.
So essentially it's about awareness, cultivating that nature of awareness. I found one thing very useful is also smiling, putting a smile on the face. The moment I detect that I am getting angry, even if it's artificial, putting a smile on the face actually changes the emotions because they are very interrelated.
What if the other person is angry and then I smile at him? Two people angry and then what happens, Vishu?
That has to be contextual.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm talking about
That'll make him more angry.
my detection of anger and then smiling at myself.
True, yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. And but most profound transformation I have experienced is actually mindfulness practices, yoga, pranayama, meditation techniques, which really transformed as a natural change in myself. Not that I have to think and act, etc. So my natural tendency to be, receive, be aware, accept, they become more natural way than artificially trying to think and do. So I would certainly recommend those techniques to George.
Simple, like learning to ride a cycle, right? And then you don't really consciously do it, right? Yeah, great insights, Ananth and Vishu. Let me summarize the key advice for George. Anger is counterproductive to oneself first, and then in dealing with situations, it does not really help. Having self-awareness helps to reduce the compulsive, angry reactions to situations. Prevention of anger often requires a shift in one's mindset from a blaming mindset to a solution mindset. And mindfulness techniques like yoga, pranayama, meditation practices, deep breaths, drinking water, all help cultivate awareness as a natural state. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, sounds good. Looks good. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, Ananth and Vishu. I'm sure managers like George will find these experiential insights very useful. Thanks for joining us.